What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Juan podcast. I have a very special guest with me today, a podcast virgin, my hunting mentor, my archery mentor, and somebody I can call a friend now. What's up, Jeff? Welcome to the show, man.
How you doing, Juan?
You nervous, bro?
No, I just it's just different. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's
cool.
I think I've done probably over 100 episodes altogether, like guesting on podcasts, and even on my
nice.
show I've done, on my show at least, on my shows I've done over 100 episodes. Yeah, and I'm gonna be doing my first radio talk show next month, which should be interesting.
Really? Was that somewhere local, on a local station or something, or?
No, it's gonna be a station out of California.
Oh, nice.
And it's like a
That's
conspiracy show. Yeah, it's gonna be a live show. It's gonna be pretty cool. So
that's great.
Obviously, I've been talking about a little bit on my show that I got into archery. I got into archery because of my buddy David. He had been, I've always been a very impulsive person, right?
Okay,
and I mean, that's how I've been all my life. I've been kind of impulsive, and whenever I get into a hobby, I always go all out because, and I know it sounds cliche, but my dad's always told me, like, if you're gonna do something, be number one at it, because nobody ever remembers number two or what you could have been, right? So obviously, I got into archery and I was reluctant to get into it, but I did, and I've always been into guns, and I've always wanted to go hunting.
Right.
And then when I seen those videos of like John Dudley and Cameron Haynes and obviously Joe Rogan hunting with a bow and arrow, that to me is so badass.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, I can relate to you big time. As far as, when you get into something, you get into it all the way. And you know what, when it comes to archery and hunting, or just archery, like I don't target shoot, but it's the same aspect. If you do it, you gotta hit the ground running and go all out. You just have to. There's too much on the line. There's too much time invested. You're talking about taking an animal's life. You know what I mean? So there's a responsibility to it. So to half step it, it's just, I've hunted with people who half step it, or have half stepped it. And, let me tell you something, man, I don't talk to them guys anymore because it ends up getting reckless, and there's a lack of respect for, the life of the animal you're pursuing. And, that's just not how I roll. So.
Yeah. And before we get into it, since you're new to the podcast, this is the question I ask everybody who comes on my podcast, and I hate to put you on the spot, but this is a question I ask everybody. Who is Jeff Sultaire? Who are you, man?
Okay. No, that's straight. No, I'm a husband. I'm a dad. I live here in Florida on the East Coast in Sebastian, Indian River County. I moved here probably about 14 years ago. I had to get out of the Northeast. I was currently an electrician up north, and I knew with that trade I can kind of go anywhere and get a job and get established. And, I met my wife here and started a family. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. And like you said, you get into these things, these patterns, up north, I hunted when I was a kid for a long time. And I kind of as I got into like my teenage years, I kind of lost interest in it, lost myself a little bit, and, got into other things, got into cars and, party scenes. And, I kind of left the outdoors behind for a little while. There were, things that didn't interest me, like patience and cold weather.
Yeah.
So, something, I mean, I kind of lost myself for a while, and as growing up, it wasn't cool to a lot of people to be an outdoorsman, or at least I didn't feel that way. The people I was around, they didn't you know, they kind of look down at it like you're just some redneck. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I went to a technical school to learn how to be an electrician, and it was either you were either like a city kid or they were just like rednecks. You know what I mean? So you kind of had to pick a side, and I was kind of like in the middle. You know what I mean? So I kind of skated through, and like I said, I got into cars and stuff, and I ended up on the tournament paintball scene for a while, which was pretty cool. But then I moved here and kind of, found who I really was, and found my wife, met her, and she kind of like, supported me and pushed me into getting back to, who I was growing up, and which is the kid with bare feet running around the woods with a 22. And I mean, it's just like, it just felt good, man. I hooked up with this guy that I worked with one day. He said, "Hey, you want to go hog hunting?" And I said, "Well, I haven't been hunting in a while. I like small game hunting. I like walking, seeing things, and being occupied." So he said, "Yeah, man, no, we're just going to go out and walk with shotguns. We see some pigs, we'll shoot them." And I said, "Well, that sounds really cool, because I don't like tree stands, sitting and waiting, and but of course, this is going back like 10 years ago, and that evolved. But that's how I got to, the passion that I love now. You know what I mean?"
Yeah, and I feel you on that. What you were saying before about me as a fisherman, because I'm real big into fishing. When there's got to be some sort of respect for the animal. When it's with hunting, it's a little bit different. What I like about you is that just from the pictures alone that you take, you can tell you're an ethical hunter. You can tell that you respect the animal, that you respect the game, because it's like you said, when you get hooked up with people who don't, then that's when it gets kind of like it's you're still killing the animal. As like when I go fishing, it's catch and release because I do a lot of bass fishing. But
Right.
when you kill the animal, you still need to have some sort of respect for it, because it's like you said, you're taking a life, and it's something like when I first went with you on Saturday, which is the first time I had ever gone to do that. I'd been places where it's remote. I've been to the Everglades. I've fished in the Everglades. It's where there's no people for miles, but when you're in the dark, in the middle of the swamp, pretty much, because that's what we're
Right.
at in Florida, it hits you a little bit differently. And then you're on top of a freaking tree stand, what, like 15 feet up in the air,
Right.
waiting for a monster to come through.
That's what it
It
feels
hit,
like,
it
right?
hits you a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah. It's a different respect. You got, like, if you don't get respect from that, and that's just hog hunting to me is really as fun as it is, and I feel that it's looked down at a little bit by in the hunting community, because you're kind of sitting over bait, which some people debate that that's not a fair or a very woodsman, doesn't display your woodsmanship skills because you're sitting on bait, and you're, so I
It's like
guess what I'm
live
trying to
bait
say,
fishing. I'm an artificial fisherman, and when I see
that's a
somebody
good,
live bait, it's the same shit.
that's a huge compare. That's a very, very good comparison. It's like, there's, you cheating this and that, but like, something, when you're in there, when you're in that stand, like, one way or the other, man, you're trying to outsmart that animal. And, like you said, waiting for a monster, like, you don't know what's going to show up. You don't know where they're coming from. You don't know if they got you pegged. And when you're in that stand, there is a respect for the area. You were like, you're in their world, man,
Yeah.
and it's definitely a feeling that you need to experience to like really understand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't get. A lot of people are against people who are against an idea that have nothing that they know nothing about. They don't experience it to really know much about. It's like, oh, you're killing an animal. It's like, well, you don't know. You know that hunting is a very big part of conservation as well.
Oh,
And these
absolutely. Yep.
animals that we're killing, it's not just obviously you eat the meat from the animal and you harvest it, but it also serves its purpose of it's an invasive species and needs to be eradicated because they cause harm and they cause damage.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, that goes to what I was saying about how I don't want to call it the bottom of the barrel of hunting, but it's not at a level, as other game species, because technically they're not a game species. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not regulated by the state. You know what I mean? There's no trophy system, like official trophy system, like Boone and Crockett or Pope and Young, like what you get with, you know, uh, any other species. When it comes to antlered species or bears, there's skull measurements for bears, but when it comes to pigs, it's just like, yeah, he's a stud. Yeah, he's got big teeth, but there's nothing that like says like, hey, we're gonna take your name and put it in a book, because it's like, and I kind of wish it would get that way, because I think it does deserve a little bit more respect than just eradicating something. It would be I'm not saying they should be up there with elk hunting or something like that, but it would be cool to get a little bit more recognition.
Yeah, elk hunting. That's definitely something I want to do. That
Me too, man. Yeah.
you
Oh
don't
my god.
understand how big that animal is until you see, like when they're stalking and they're killing, 60 yards away or whatever it is, 80 yards away of your Cam and Hanes, you're killing elk 80
Yep,
yards
yep.
away. You don't really see how big that animal is until they go up to it, and just the rack on
Oh,
that
when they grab
animal.
those horns and they turn that head and sit down, it's like, man,
Or even
I don't think.
bison or buffalo, dude. How
Oh
giant
yeah,
those things are.
yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, I got friends who've hunted elk, taken elk with compound bows and even bison, man. And it's like, a good friend of mine has a trophy room with some of the stuff on his walls. I mean, just seeing a fraction of the animal, excuse me, is mind blowing. I mean, that's like, you killed that with a stick and a string.
Yeah.
It's wild, man.
And
Absolutely.
when we were sitting out there Saturday night, we sat in that tree stand for like 4.5 hours, whatever it was.
Oh,
It
yeah.
felt like longer. Obviously, we got to talking, and we got to talking about a little bit of conspiracies, and I asked you what type of weird shit had happened to you out there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you freaked me out, dude, with
The barefoot
with
story.
the barefoot guy, man. Like, what in the world? There's people out there, even in the group that I met you on Facebook. There was a dude waiting around barefoot hunting in the swamp, and I'm like, dude, you're barefoot. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well,
I can do snakes and gators. I can't do spiders though, dude. And you were just walking through the spider webs. I was like, fuck that.
that's funny, man. Because like, and like, I apologize to you because I don't, I'm just doing my thing. And I'm like, oh man, I got to be, I need to kind of be a little more courteous here because you're not used to that shit. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
understand that, it's just, but I'm just like walking. I'm like, damn, I'm gonna check on him.
You just kept going deeper and deeper, and I'm like,
I know.
yo,
I'm like, shit,
where
man.
you going, bro?
I better. Yeah, I know. I'm like,
And then you
I
turn
better
around and
slow
you
down.
go, where'd we come from? And I was like, the fuck if I know? I'm following you, bro. It's like pitch black. We're in the grass is higher than our heads. And I'm just
Oh
following you
yeah,
through
man.
the woods, and you just turn around. Hey, where'd we come from? I was like, I've been fucking paying attention to you this whole time, following you.
Just watching me whacking spiders away. It's like,
Yeah.
let's turn around and go back and follow the spider webs that are
But it's
knocked
like
over.
it's like what I had told you when what we were saying. Literally, the only light source that was there was the moon, and and the thing about archery, which is the same thing that I get out of fishing, is that what we were talking about being able to disconnect while you're out there, and just literally all you hear is the wind and the trees moving and the animals, and you're just there because there's a guy, I don't know if you've heard of him, Terrence McKenna, who
No, I
he's
haven't. No.
he's very prominent in the psychedelic community and stuff like that. And he's real big on that we've lost connection with nature, and obviously nowadays everybody's on their fucking phone all the time. We're zombies. We're cyborgs. We don't go anywhere
Oh
without
hell
our
yeah, man.
phone.
Yep,
we're,
yep.
we're so deep in that, and when you go out there and just to be able to put your phone down and just focus, what I like about fishing is that when I go out there for 10-12 hours, however long I go out there, I'm focused on that next bite. I'm not thinking about what I got to do for work, what bills I got to pay, what's
That's it,
this,
man.
what's that. You're
It's like
focused on that.
your own church. You know what I'm saying? Like it really
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
a way to. I mean, that's why, like, I would like to be able to, like, influence more people, you know, to actually experience hunting and fishing, and, you know, you got even camping, or, you know, even hiking. You don't have to be out there interacting with wildlife. Just, man, go walk around. Like, I mean, the woods, man, to me is like, that's my home, you know? Like I always say, man, I could go out there and just, you know, building a little house in the woods and not even come out, you know? And it's, you know
like
what I'm
that
saying?
show,
Just like,
that show that I told you about, Alone.
alone. Well, I don't know if I could do it by myself. I'd have to have, you know,
Bro, that's why I told you you're a special breed if you're out there by yourself at night.
yeah, well, psychologically, you know, to actually live by yourself without any interaction with anything, you
It's
know,
not
is,
possible. You go insane.
we're social creatures, and that show proves it. I mean, you see people have
Yeah.
absolute meltdowns, and they break down like spiritually and mentally to like it destroys them. You
Well, that's
know?
what I tell my wife. I said, listen, yeah, it brings you back to what people were like back then, our ancestors, and like this primal nature that we have. But at the end of the day, back then, people survived together. People didn't survive alone. There was a community of people. There was a
No,
community
you
of
can't.
indigenous people, whoever it was. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we're social creatures. You know, that's how we're built. You know, so you remove yourself or a person from that social group, and I'm telling you, man, you don't think about it until you watch a show like that. You know, at least I never really thought that in that
Yeah.
much depth about it. And you start seeing it. You know, you see it firsthand what they go through and the documentation.
Yeah.
And it strikes even harder when these people have like young kids at home, and, you know, people who are depending on them, and birthdays they're missing. I mean, it really
Yeah.
it tears them up, man.
Yeah, that
So
show really brought it up to the next level. They're like, yeah, it's last man standing. You got 500 grand, but it's
yeah,
until you can go. And that really, and even when, like, if you're out there and you're like on month 3 and you're like, man, how is it that there's somebody else out here? They're even a more hardcore motherfucker than I am, if
oh
they
yeah,
outlast me. You know what I mean? Like that, at least in Naked and Afraid, at least you have somebody else with you, right? But not
oh
on
yeah,
this
yeah,
show.
yeah.
This show, well, there were seasons where they had partners or whatever, but they were mostly alone, and I don't think I could do that, because even when people are in, what's that one stuff when they put you on solitary confinement? Is that what they call it?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
In
yeah, like
prison?
in prison, like segregation, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they go crazy. People lose their minds
Oh
when they're
yeah,
in
you see them
solitary
videos,
confinement.
and they're beating on the glass. I mean, they're like caged animal, like the worst caged animal. You know, that's, I don't know about that, man. You know, I don't know. It's you know, you get lost in the beauty of the outdoors, but
Yeah.
to a point, it'll come back at you. You know.
It's a beast. It's definitely a beast. It's like when people are out in Alaska's a beautiful place. Alaska's a beautiful place, and it's also a very remote place. Montana's beautiful. Utah has its places. Where else
Hmm.
is it that I want to go? I want to go to Montana. I want to go to Utah. Washington is a shithole, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful
Right,
up there.
right, right.
I want to go to BC as well. BC in Canada. It's British
Yeah.
Columbia.
Yep.
It's beautiful out there. And what is it? People in Washington, and I know people in Alaska, they suffer from. There was an episode of Alone that I was watching where the guy literally cried because the way his camp was set up, the sun wouldn't hit it, right? So he got like the short
Oh
end of the
yeah.
stick.
Yeah, I
And when
don't
he got a
remember that
ray
one.
of sunshine, he was like crying. And I'm like, just from getting sunshine, because with what's happening right now in the world with the whole coronavirus bullshit, people are indoors, and a lot of people are suffering depression. The suicides are up. Just from a simple thing that if you go outside and you get vitamin D from the sun, literally, it can help you like tremendously.
Oh,
And
they've proven that, man. Like, just like depression alone, you know, like go for a walk, go
yeah,
out in the sun. You know, I mean, that's the thing for real.
yeah. So we obviously we weren't successful on Saturday night because of unforeseen circumstances, and apparently somebody they blew the hogs out of the area because again these are smart animals. These aren't just any regular type of animals. They have I believe what pigs don't have that great of eyesight. They have more of a sense of smell.
True. Yep. Yeah. Their sense of smell is like, I'm not sure of the number, but it is proven to more like a olfactory sensor than a mature white-tailed deer, which is pretty damn hard to contend.
Yeah,
I mean, they're keen animals. You get not only the physical aspect of the disruption of the land and trees being in the way of normally traveled paths and whatnot, but now you have the stench of probably a big leaky machine, with a bunch of people on it just crushing the whole area. And that brings me to another thing. Sometimes I overthink things, but I like to know why. Like what brought that buggy to that area?
yeah. Well, it wasn't
So
even
just
supposed to be
so
back there, no?
well, just so people know, I mean, this is a huge area with a lot of trails. It's used as a recreational area for a lot of people. The people aren't really supposed to be back there, but they go back there. Where we're at is on the property edge of where we have permission to be. But what's puzzling to me is this big machine, this big swamp buggy. It didn't take any trails. I mean, it came, and that's what they do. That's what they're built for. But why did it just come right up to where we were? And it kind of makes me think that, I think I even mentioned it to you that night, that maybe these guys had some dogs dropped out with radio collars that, led them to where the hogs were at. And that's why they came up there and they did a big U-turn and were trying to figure out what's going on. And why else would they come all the way up there? I don't know. Maybe they're just driving around too. So here we go with me overthinking,
Yeah, I watch videos of hog hunting with dogs, and that shit's hardcore. That's a different aspect of okay, because when you hunt hogs with a dog, it's more of the dog, right? You're not depending on you're
Well,
depending
you
on the
depend
dog.
on, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Okay, first of all, I've done it a couple times. I don't have my own hunting dogs. I don't know a whole bunch about it, but what I do know is that as a dog man, um, you need to place your dogs in an area where they're going to be able to capitalize. You know what I mean? I mean, you
Yeah.
have to go. You have to do your homework. Go where you think the pigs might be. Find fresh sign. You want to put your dogs in a place where the wind direction is going to favor the dogs so they can hone in. So you do play a part in it,
Oh shit. Yeah.
as a houndsman, to do your part and do the brains of it all, the intel behind it, and put your dogs in a position where they can, work for you. So that much I do know from the few times I've been out with dogs. But yeah, it's gnarly, man. That's some crazy shit right there.
And
Dog
mind you,
hunting is
these animals, hogs, they can boar, whatever you want to call it. They can kill you. I mean, when we were scouting around, you could see where they sharpen their little tusks at the bottom of their teeth.
yeah.
And they gore people. I mean, even on Game of Thrones, I don't know if you watched that show. One of the kings got gored
Right.
by a boar because they went out boar hunting, and it'll charge you. It'll charge you. It's a very big animal. They get how big? How big do they get? They can get up to 450 pounds. No.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, a true wild hog with no human influence, no access to unnatural foods like from, grains from cow pens and stuff like that. To a pure wild hog. Yeah, the biggest one that I've heard of this area was around 400 pounds. So
Wow. And there was
yeah,
a kid I saw. What was it? Hogzilla. Have you seen that?
yeah, yep. Now that was where it was, Alabama or Georgia, possibly.
I don't fucking
Um,
know. I just know it was giant. It was like a cow, man.
Well, there's some of them things you see, and they'll be like in the front end of like a bucket loader, and they'll wild hog, Hogzilla, But if you take a good look at some of those those true giants, you'll notice that there's a lot of domestic traits, like
Oh, okay.
overwhelming domestic traits in those pigs. You'll see big floppy ears. You'll see foreheads that are real steep. You know what I'm saying? That come up. They're real. Instead of like a long flat nose and flat head, they'll have shorter snouts. And
that was actually a pig that they released, right? And it just grew up, or
either it escaped or they released, or maybe possibly like a first generation born, wild pig. Something that just has genetics from like a domestic, like a blue butt or a Hampshire, strand of pig that just gets really big and really big fast. And on top of that, you get it where it's hitting, feed pens for cattle and getting all that protein and all of that. And I think one of them, I'm not sure which one it was, but there was a huge one that was like 1,000-something pounds, and they saw it. It was going into a pond and eating the fish food. They had a feeder set up that would broadcast, pellets onto the water, and the damn pig would go in there and he'd be chest deep eating all the pellets off the top of the water. So there's an example of there's an example of like human influence when it comes to that. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And I the reason I wanted to get into hunting is because with the state of the world right now, what's happening right now, I think it's such a great. I've never, I've filleted a fish and I've cut open a fish and cleaned it out, but I've never filleted an animal or filleted. I've never cleaned out a field dressed an animal. Yeah. And I feel like it's such an important skill because, dude, I was. This is embarrassing, but it wasn't for me. I picked up McDonald's, and when I was in the drive-thru, there was these kids like waiting with their trunk open of their car, and then this other car pulled up, and it was like just these kids, and they were waiting for somebody to come and change their fucking tire because they had a flat tire.
I can't, man. Dude, I mean, come on.
I was like, seriously? I was like, dude, you literally had to wait for somebody to come out to get the tire, that's the spare tire, to mount it on. You couldn't do that your fucking self. So it comes to what's happening right now. People storm the stores to buy all the food, all the toilet paper, and all that shit. And before all this started, I was kidding around with my wife, and I told her, I said, listen, let the food run out. Let it run out. Whatever happens, happens. We'll go back to nature. We can go out and you know how many boar there are here in Florida, hogs, wild hogs? It's just as good meat. I mean, it's if anything, it's healthier. It doesn't taste the same, obviously, because it's a wild animal. It's more lean. Right. It's not eating. It's eating whatever it wants. It's not eating a diet. This is what they do with animals.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no antibiotics and all that crap.
If anything, it's healthier, and that's bad that we've gotten used to eating this garbage. But at the end of the day, I feel you'll have that one up on that next person over, because while they're probably dying of starvation because they don't know how to hunt or do whatever, you have that one up. You can go out somewhere, shoot an animal, a deer, whatever it is, have a bunch of meat for X amount of time. Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's going to separate into two groups of people: the people who can self-sustain, and then you're going to get the people who are, they're trying to rob people because they don't have any other choice but to, and that's where you get that.
Or chaos. You don't do either. Either you just shrivel up and die, or you get, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's people in a desperate scenario, But no,
hopefully it doesn't get to that though.
We'll never go hungry, you and I. That's for damn sure. So,
but hopefully it doesn't get to that, right? Because I mean,
that's scary times, man. I mean, that's just having to fend for yourself, to feed yourself. I mean, that's just the top of even bigger problems,
Because I mean, obviously we're in this country, and I'm Puerto Rican, and I got called a Puerto Rican regnet today, and I was like, yeah, I am a Puerto Rican redneck. That's fine with me. But we're in this country where we have freedoms and we have luxuries that other people in other countries don't get. And every time I watch a movie of war or something like that, like Black Hawk Down, I'm like, man, I can't imagine living in somewhere where right outside your window there's bombs and shit going off and all that type of stuff,
man. Yeah, matter of fact, I had a conversation with a guy at work today. He's from He's from Africa. He's from a country in southwestern Africa. I don't remember, some country I never heard of before, but he barely speaks English. He's kind of like kind of like a day labor guy. Really nice dude, right? But he was asking me. He said, "Hey, we were talking about where we grew up and stuff." And he said, "Oh, were there a lot of gangs and we were afraid and this?" And I'm like, "What? No." I said, "There might have been some bad people around, you know what I mean? But like bad people where I'm from and probably most of the places, bad people mostly just fuck with bad people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, walking down the street getting shot for no reason is kind of like, I mean, I'm sure there's places, but it's not the norm. You know, I mean, it's not in suburbia. You know what I mean? And he couldn't believe it. He was like, I mean, he came from a place that was like war torn.
Wow.
I mean, and it's
there's
like
genocide going on in Africa. There's people killing, just eradicating other people.
Oh, that's been going on for forever, man. You know? I mean, that's scary. And then you hear all about them, like the farmers, like the South African farmers getting raided and killed, and what these cartels are doing to them and all that. Like that's a whole other, like, torturing them and killing their families and raping everybody, and like, I mean, doing brutal things to them, man. And it's like, imagine having to look up your shoulder for that.
No, I can't. I mean, man. It's one thing. It's one thing to kill an animal, but then it's another thing to kill a person. You know what I mean? And my favorite thing, dude, when I was like bow shopping and stuff like that, my favorite thing to do would be like just to see the person's reaction when they would, oh yeah, these arrows or this bow is good. I'm like, what will it do to a man? Just to see what they would do. Like, oh, this?
Yeah, right.
This will fucking kill him, man. I'm like, there you go. Like, you know what I mean? Just to fuck with them.
Something. Have you read Chris Kyle's book, American Sniper? I don't know if you ever read that, or
I've seen the movie.
Yeah, well, he goes into his book about like.
I think guys like that are sociopaths, though, dude.
Dude, you got it. You gotta have like. I don't know if you can train someone to become a sociopath or what, but some of them guys don't start off too good, and they sure as hell don't end up too good. I mean, they were taking bets like on how many different weapons they can use to take out the enemy. Like, oh, have you got a handgun kill yet? Have you got a machine gun kill yet? And man, there was one time where, and I hope I'm going to get this right. So they were watching some insurgents cross a river, right? It's Chris Kyle and his sniper team were in a building, and we're watching these guys try to advance on them. I don't know how far away, but they were.
Are these Navy guys? Are these SEALs?
Yeah, he was part of the SEAL teams. They were watching these insurgents try to make moves on them, but there's a river in the way, and I don't know how wide the river was. I guess it was pretty big because the insurgents were blowing up beach balls, hanging on the beach balls and kicking, and I guess there were rapids. It was a pretty big, wide, like dangerous river. And, they got the SEAL guys, excuse me, they were shooting the beach balls and letting the guys drown.
Oh shit.
I mean,
that's fucked up.
That's how I remember reading it. I mean, if you want to fact check that, then be my guest. But
yeah,
they were. That's how I remember it going down. They were shooting the beach.
I mean, and I don't want to talk down on the SEALs because I've had people from the services on my show before, but there's been even talks about the things that they do, and it comes back to this tribal barbarian type behavior where when you get in that mindset you just want more and more and more. And they've even talked about like when people when they would kill somebody, they would like smash their heads in, their faces in, they'd scalp them, and they'd be like almost like an Inglorious Bastards type thing, right?
Right.
They'd be scalping them and shit, and they're talking about charging these guys with like what's that war of crimes or crimes of war or something like that.
Yeah. War crimes, for like desecration and stuff.
Yeah, for like mutilating corpses and stuff like that, which I mean, but imagine being in that position where one of these guys kills your comrade, your brother, and then they proceed to cut his head off right after they killed him.
Oh yeah,
That would make you feel some type of way. You know what I mean?
it's
So a
got
lot
to.
of these guys are it's fucked up, man. War's
Oh yeah,
fucked up.
yeah. Then they come back here and they try to find their place in life. It's crazy, man.
It's like the guy from Hurt Locker. He couldn't be home. He couldn't.
Right.
He needed to always be in that place of war. And dude, I mean that happens even today. I know people who are over the road truck drivers and they don't want to be anywhere else that's not over the road. They can't stand being home with their spouse. They can't stand being home because they're just so used to being out there by themselves,
Yeah, it's like
disconnected. You know what I mean?
absolutely. It's like they've been reprogrammed. They've been reprogrammed. It's like what was normal. What's comfortable is now uncomfortable. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, man, that's a crazy place to be in. And being
Yeah.
over there, rolling playing games, who killed who with what weapon. I mean, that's where I was going with that was they were trying to, I guess they were talking, how about, can we get a compound bow kill,
Oh
out
shit.
there? But obviously that goes against, rules of engagement types of weapons to you, but like they had their bows and they were target shoot on the range. And one of them's like, I'm going to try to get this bow into, out in the combat field and see if I could, get a double lung on some freaking insurgent or some shit.
That's like, wild. That's like some real life Hunger Games. And again, I'm not ex-military. I'm not ex-service, whatever. So I can't really speak on that. You know what I mean? Like I have my opinions about it, and I'm saying this with an American flag behind me because I am proud of to be in this country because, like I said, I have a buddy of mine that lives in Vietnam, and there is no protesting over there. There is no your opinion doesn't matter to the government, to those people over there. If you go out in the middle of the street and you start protesting, if you want to, they'll tell you one time, hey, listen, clean it the fuck up and go home. Guess what happens if you don't listen?
Oh, I know, man.
They shoot you in the head. That's it. The government will do that and they'll kill you. And that's it. There's nothing you can do about it. And a lot of people take that for granted in this country that we have freedom of speech, that we can talk about this shit right now on a podcast. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, absolutely, man. That's like, that goes beyond even any sense like that. That's, like this rioting that they still label it as peaceful protesting when they're burning shit down and blowing shit up and hurting people. Yeah. It's like, man, it's like that's spitting in the face of this country. You know what I mean? And it's totally desecrating the your right to protest and freedom of speech and everything. And it's like, if you try doing that shit in freaking Somalia or some shit like that, or man,
there's no doing it. But it's like what we talked a little bit about while we were out there about, you told me that sometimes you have to, I've said that the mind it has attributed to the most biggest atrocities in history, like Hitler, right? A man killed a bunch of people. And then obviously the doctors who use their mind for good and the powers that be. You know what I mean? Like you're either good or bad. And that just comes down to somebody's mind. And you told me that when you're out there, sometimes you had to beat your What did you mean by you had to beat your imagination with a stick sometimes?
Well, what that means is, you're in an area where, I wouldn't call it complete sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
But you're in a place where, it's dark, it's quiet, it's solitary. And, when my mind, and I think I could speak for a lot of people, is in a state of that, your imagination, could really, get away from you. And by beating it with a stick, what I specifically meant was once you feel it going, like, oh, what ifs, and like I told you, what if you turn on that night vision scope and you look and, what if there's something you don't want to see? Whatever it is you don't want to see. What if it's looking back at you? You know what I mean? And
when you told me
out,
that, bro, like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I was like, "Oh shit,
dude, that gets me every time." I'll beat it with a stick. I'll be there and I'll be like, I'll turn the scope on. I'll lean down the scope. Why that thing's fucking looking back at me again? I'm like, no shit. Okay, chill out, you know. But in the stand, it's not that. I can. It's easier for me to harness my imagination in the stand. You know, I guess I feel like less vulnerable. And truth be told, there's nothing to be afraid of except some fucking wacko out there. You know what I mean? Like a human being would be the scariest thing to me to see just come walking through there. Oh, what the hell? I mean, that's more out of place than anything you can imagine. You know what I'm saying? So
that was my biggest fear, dude. Like some hills have eyes, hillbilly just out there.
that's what I'm saying. That's some creepy shit. So, but when I'm walking and when you're at the mercy of your flashlight and you're only seeing as far as that beam will let you see, and as far as the vegetation will let you see, and you're walking and you're lugging shit and you're carrying stuff, and you know, you saw the mud we walked through, and you're slipping and you're watching for snakes and you're listening for, you know, it's just like probably 95% of the time I'm just like, okay, I'm just walking out of here. And that 5%, man, it keeps just rearing its head, popping in and out, you know, like, you know, what if you see something you don't want to see? It's kind of like that, like there's nothing to fear but fear itself. It's like the fear of being startled by something, you know, it freaks me the hell out. You know, I mean,
one of my favorite authors of all time. Let me look up the quote. One of my favorite authors of all time, and somebody who inspired pretty much modern day horror with the Cthulhu mythos. It's H.P. Lovecraft. My favorite quote by him is, "The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest kind of fear is fear of the unknown." And that's pretty much what we're talking about. What we don't know, that is extraterrestrial to us. That fear of not knowing what it is, right? And I think I asked you, because I'm one that I'm into cryptids. I've had a shout out to Ryan Burns. I've had him on the show where he has property out by Skinwalker Ranch. I've talked about the Wendigo. I've talked about the Skinwalker. I've talked about Bigfoot. I've talked about aliens.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I asked you, I was like, that's the first thing you think about when you're out in some place like that, like the skunk ape, right?
Right.
Have you ever, do you feel like you've ever been close to something like that? Do you believe in that? Like,
you know, something, it's a thing that I find a lot of interest in. I can go either way. I'm sort of a skeptic. The idea of it is really intriguing. You know what I mean? Like the thought of it is like, I mean, I love it. Ask my wife, man. You go to my YouTube or something or on TV, you look at my, you know, like my history. It's like you Bigfoot this, you know, I mean, it's a list a mile long. Like I'm definitely into it. You know, do I believe it's a possibility? I do believe it's a possibility. I just don't know in the, you know, in the volume. Some of it, I feel like there's just a lot of error. There's a lot of hoaxing. You know, so it's like the credibility goes down greatly. You know what I mean? And you start, and that's what makes it what it is. And you start wondering, you know, where's the line between truth and fiction, you know? But you listen to some testimonials, you know, I don't believe every story. I definitely don't believe probably most of the stories, but there's some guys that, you know, old Florida, you know, crackers and you know, Gladesmen and stuff like that. And it's like, how could these guys possibly be full of shit? How?
Do you know anybody who's run into one?
There was a post on Facebook on the Three Lakes Hunters page that they said that they saw a skunk ape near Lake Jackson out at Three Lakes. That was this year. Yeah, it was this year. And you know what? Like, I mean, of course, the thread blew up and everyone's laughing at him and this and that. But it's like,
that's like down the road from me, dude.
Right.
What the fuck? Lake Jackson. I was gonna fish Lake Jackson not too long ago.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, now is this guy again? Here we go. Is this guy full of shit? Is he just trying to get a rise out of people? Because he got a rise out of people. Everyone was freaking, you know, they were just ripping them apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people, being sarcastic and shit, and it's like maybe he did, or maybe he. And here's another thing: what about the people who really truly believe they saw something? Like they're not playing around. In their heart of hearts, they're 1,000% sure. So it's like then you got to throw that in the mix. There was if I wish I could remember the website. You could do a Google search and find some skunk ape sightings, and the closest sighting to where me and you were sitting isn't that far away. It's probably within 5 miles, and it was
seriously.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. It was on the interstate. It was on 95 southbound lane, in the Sebastian River Preserve.
I don't think we're gonna be able to go back there, dude. I don't want to go back there. Did you finish watching that movie?
I didn't. My son stayed at a friend's last night, and he wants to finish watching it. Halfway into it, I'm like, should he be watching this shit?
Yeah, I don't think did you let him watch it by himself?
Not by him. Well, he was watching it with us, but I'm like sitting there. I'm like, sometimes me and my wife will look at each other and be like, is this, like, but he's so desensitized to some of that shit. It was a crazy.
Let him watch in the movie. Bigfoot rapes the chick, bro.
Dude, I started seeing that. I'm like, me and my wife were looking at each other, and we're like scrambling for the remote. I'm like, dude, is this Bigfoot? Is this really happening?
Yeah.
That was about where we cut it off, to be honest with you. Right when we started figuring out, like,
Yeah, once you realize what was happening,
because it's kind of subtle. It kind of starts out a little like, huh? Now they wouldn't do that. Oh my God, they're doing that.
They did that. Yeah,
they did that. So,
but mind you, I watched that movie before we went out there, like the week before. So like, and mind you, I'm into all this shit, like the whole cryptids and paranormal, and like, there's a part of me, is like you said, that believes that when you're into it, you're that much more skeptical, so you'll need more proof to believe it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Versus a person who's not into conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and can just, oh, that wasn't that. There's a more, Occam's razor. There's always a more logical explanation to it, which that's fine too. But I didn't know that close to where we were at was like a Bigfoot site. That's wild.
Yeah, it was right on the side of 95, and there were that it was a tall creature. I'll send you the link so you can share it or whatever. But yeah, it's there, and it's a documented thing. And they classify them like an A, B, or C encounter. You know what I'm saying? Like what?
Yeah.
Like what type? Like, is it something you saw far away? Did you see a footprint?
Yeah.
Did you hear it? Did it threaten you? Like, so and that was like somewhere in the middle of several witnesses that were, that saw it. So, I mean,
here's the thing, dude. Like one time, and I don't know if you know this, you do know that there's monkeys here in Florida, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't know that. One time I went camping over by, I think it was over by somewhere over
like Ocala, somewhere like that, over in that area.
Well, they're in Ocala. They're up towards Claremont, I think, and which is like north central Florida-ish kind of. And
right.
I went camping one time. I was like towards Lakeland area down there somewhere, and I was laying down in my tent, and I was by a lake, and I was reading here's the thing. That's the thing. I was reading a book I was reading Ryan Burns' book about like werewolves and skinwalkers and Bigfoot and shit like that.
Right. Don't tell me you see a fucking monkey.
Well, that's it. No, so I kept hearing like these weird noises by the lake, like monkeys, like rah, like like this, like how monkeys do, like rah, they're fucking going crazy. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
With the little bit of signal that I had, I looked up, like just out of curiosity. I was like, is there monkeys in Florida? And there is fucking monkeys. But and I've told this story before. The craziest part about the monkeys, which is a rhesus macaques, which is it's a type of monkey that's obviously not from here. They're used for like the monkeys that they use for like experiments and stuff like that.
Oh,
and
yeah, okay.
The reason that they're here was because this one rich guy wanted to have exotic animals on this island, right? Obviously, just leave it to the rich guy. He wanted to have exotic animals on the island.
Yeah.
He released 6. He failed to know that they fucking swim. So they swam off. He got 6 more, and those 6, and but here's the scary part about it. And this is something I think about even when I'm out in the woods, and I've even thought about like before going hunting. The monkeys, they have a type of herpes that can be transmitted to humans with like a 95% kill rate or some crazy number. When they scratch people,
I heard of
they
herpes, but I'm like, I mean, I just thought I didn't realize it was that like a deadly different type of shit.
Yeah. You hear about like the obviously like with coronavirus, right? It came from a quote unquote bat. It transferred to humans, and that's why it's so crazy. The same thing with these monkeys. The ones that are infected, they scratch people, the person gets infected and they die. I think it was like 50% of the time or 95% of the time, something crazy. And I'm like, that's even scarier than the coronavirus. Because at least
shit, dude.
People,
imagine that death by monkey herpes. Fuck that.
How wild that would be, dude. But I think about this.
Like, I know, but they're such assholes to begin with. Like, if there's gonna be an animal that's just gonna scratch you to be a dick, it's gonna be a monkey.
Yeah. So
just dicks.
So like, I wouldn't put it past Florida to actually have, because if you go, dude, how many acres are there out in the Everglades? I've been to the Everglades. There's thousands and thousands upon thousands of acres of just land that at the end of the day, you don't know what's out there. It's just like in the Midwest, there's places where you can go where you don't see people for miles. Maybe not here in Florida, but there are some remote areas here in Florida. And even when I've been out to the Everglades, that it's dead quiet right off of US 1 or whatever in the middle of the Everglades.
Right.
It's quiet, dude. It's quiet. You don't see anybody. And I was out there one time with a buddy of mine fishing, and out of nowhere, we hear like what sounded like the roar of a bear. And I'm like, again, Googling, is there fucking bears in Florida? There's bears, and you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, man,
it's wild. So I wouldn't put it past it that just like the Mothman, they say comes from like this leaking mine that mutated it because of some chemicals that were in there that they were using in the mine, and then that's how you got the Mothman.
That's wouldn't like West put Virginia or some shit, right?
I did an episode on it a while back. I forgot, but yeah, up north somewhere, the Mothman. Another crypt. I grew up in Puerto Rico. Well, I didn't grow up in Puerto Rico, but I lived there till I was like 7 or 8. And I grew up when the chupacabra was like prominent, but not the chupacabra that people think of now, which is like a canine. I grew up with the chupacabra, the alien looking one.
Yeah, the one that looks like like it's all like got
like with spikes down. Yeah. I grew up with that chupacabra, and then when it mutated to like this dog canine looking thing, I'm like, that's not what the chupacabra is. Like it's an it's an ET pretty much. That's what it is. Yeah. One time I went to Puerto Rico and I went out to the rainforest over there, and I ended up hiking through the rainforest that they have there at Yunque, which is I believe it's the northwest area somewhere there. And we ended up hiking through the rainforest and coming out like at the bottom of where like the mountain at the bottom of where we had parked. So I had to walk probably like 2 or 3 miles up the mountain on this road, like this main road. And it was like raining, and there was like no cars or anything coming by, dude. And when I was walking through the rainforest, that the main road, I felt like there was something like that feeling where you get
that's the feeling that I always beat away with a stick. I'm telling you, man. Yeah, no, I know that feeling that you're not as alone as you think you are.
Yeah, but
something's, I mean, watching you or whatever.
What I think Bigfoot is, dude, I think that Bigfoot is part of in the book. And again, I mean, we even talked about religion. When you're in a tree stand for 4.5 hours with a guy, you're gonna talk some fatherhood, religion, conspiracy theories, a little bit of everything. We talked about about the Bible, and I feel that Bigfoot is part of the Nephilim. When these angels came down and they were fucking the women and fucking the animals, they created this interdimensional being, and that's why I feel like it's so hard to see, because they're seeing the Bigfoot. I don't know where it's gone. Maybe it's got an interdimensional aspect that it can.
I think that's one thing. Sorry, I think that's one thing that's gained popularity is the cross dimension. You know, like that goes into, well, how come we never found a dead one? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I'm. You know, so like that's one of the things, and that's a little harder to entertain. You know what I mean? Because it's like you want to normalize Bigfoot as much as you can. You know what I mean? Like you want to make it as like rational and like is like simplify what it is.
We want to, but we also want to personify it, because we're humans. You know what I mean? We want to androgenize everything. Even when we see something, it's like, oh, it looked like a big hairy man. It might have been a fucking bear on its two hind legs, because they're they're big. You know what I mean? Like how have you seen this is another documentary you should check out. I think it's on Hulu. Grizzly Man. Have you seen that documentary?
I've heard of it. Is that that's the guy who kind of like lives among the bears?
Dude, you gotta watch that documentary.
Is it by a series or is it like a?
It's an hour and 45-minute documentary by Herzog. I forget his name. I think he's a German or Russian director. Once you hear the guy's voice, you're gonna be like, oh, I've heard this guy's voice before. The guy who narrates it. And dude, it's such. You know, I watch a fair amount of documentaries, but this is one of the few documentaries that when I started watching it, it really sucked me in. And you got to check it out, because again, it's about this guy who has a man bear complex. He wants to be a bear, and he's living next to these giant grizzly bears with nothing, no bear mace, no 10 millimeter, nothing on him, bro, because he feels that they're not dangerous, that they're, and then eventually
he feels a connection and all that with them. And how did that work out?
Well, that's what I said. Spoiler alert: he fucking gets hit by a bear. You know.
I think everyone, if you don't see that coming, man, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When I find it so fascinating, something that can eat you with its face. It's fascinating to me. Like that picture you showed me, was that your trail cam? That cat, was that a cougar or bobcat?
Oh, the bobcat, yeah.
Those things will fucking tear your throat out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything, like any wildlife, when it's provoked, you know, whether it's backed in a corner, injured, protecting its young, threatened, in however way, you know, like, dude, a cat is like. That's the last thing on earth you want to tangle with. I mean, it's just everything's sharp, everything hurts, everything's fat. You know, it's just like it's like a Ferrari with razor blades. You know, like pissed off, you know. But it's like, you know, that thing's not gonna look at you and say, "I'm gonna eat that dude," and just straight up attack you like you're prey. Like, and that's why I don't really fear any animals when I'm out there. Like, I don't fear. You know, coyote, like we heard coyotes. Remember, we heard sounding off. Yeah. They were going off at the train. Like I've come face to face with them out there, you know, on the golf cart. Of course, some, you know, false sense of security, golf cart, whatever, you know, but still it's nothing I'm afraid of, because I've been around enough wildlife and been in the woods enough to know that, like, dude, you are the scariest thing out there, man. You know, anything that
we have thumbs, right?
That's it, man. Thumbs and you walk upright. Anything that sees you is gonna boogie. They don't want nothing to do with you, man. Nothing.
You're not afraid of the boars, bro?
No. I mean, I've had a couple incidences where, you know, there was one time we come up on an injured one. Again, it was injured. I mean, now here you go. It's a game changer. You know what I'm saying? Like it's you put yourself in a vulnerable situation like that. You can interchange that animal with anything at that point, you know? So it's like, okay, it's injured. Yeah. I had a run in where it got pretty hairy, you know? And then there was another one where it was trapped. And again, it was trapped and it had babies with it. But like, do I? So in that situation, yeah, it's very, you can be very cautious, and yeah, it is scary. I mean, you're facing off with a couple 100-pound animal with huge teeth that's looking to defend its life to the end of its life.
Yeah.
So, but am I afraid of a hog just coming out of the swamp and just totally straight up attacking me out of nowhere? No, I'm not. I don't think that's. I mean, maybe it happens somewhere. There's freak things that happen places, but that's not something that's a reality to me. You know what I mean?
Do you think that when you shoot the animal and it's got the adrenaline rolling through its blood, do you think that does something to the meat? Do you think that does something? Do you think that affects the quality of the meat?
Um, there's
I was
rumor
thinking
that it
about that the
does.
other day.
Yeah, there's rumor that it does. I mean, and like theoretically, if you think about, what your muscles go through in a stressful situation, releasing all endorphins and toxins and adrenaline. I have a friend of mine, a good friend of mine who's, hunted for many years and has taken animals all over the world. He's we were skinning out some pigs one night, and there was a yellowish type of film, kind of like it was almost like as it dried up a little bit, it almost resembled tissue paper, kind of like wet tissue paper. And
Yeah.
it's like an opaque yellow. It was between the hide and the meat. And he told me now, and I have yet to look into this. He said that's adrenaline. That's what's released from the muscles, and that's part of, how it's released and how it surfaces on the meat. And I'm like, oh, the guy knows his stuff.
What
Be
the
something
fuck?
that it would be kind of something neat to look into. But I bow hunt mostly, so everything I shoot, which is mainly hogs, everything I shoot runs.
Yeah.
And within somewhere around the 5-second mark on a good hit, it's done. So everything I eat has been exposed to that push of adrenaline, at the last minute. And I can't say for certain that meat tastes any different than something that I shot in the head with a rifle that dropped dead and didn't know what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Because you're originally from Connecticut, right? You did a lot of hunting up there?
Growing up, I did a lot of small game hunting, mainly just screwing around in the neighborhood woods with, a 22 or BB gun. And, once I got to the age, my brother really grew up, hunting that area hard, very, very hard. And he, we were both introduced to, squirrel hunting, and that grew to pheasant hunting.
What does squirrel taste like? Does it taste good?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's so cliche, but it tastes like dark meat chicken. Maybe a little bit gamier, but it ain't bad. I mean, I could say it tastes like rabbit, but if you don't know what rabbit tastes like, then
Yeah, rabbit soup is delicious. Rabbit stew.
Yeah, so if you've had that before, then yeah, squirrel is very similar. But my brother graduated to hunting, deer. And at that point, man, me and him were two different people, and I couldn't sit in a tree stand. He was older than me, and he has way more patience than me. I just couldn't do it, and that's kind of where I hung it up for a while and just got into other things.
Were you the kid with ADHD, bro?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That's yeah. Hopefully, when we go out next time, which is hopefully soon, we can get my first hog, and then I got my hunting license, so maybe we'll go out to a public land area and maybe get a deer or something. I don't know. Hopefully,
Dude, I'm really pumped to get you on your first pig, man. I've gotten a few people on their first pig, and it's like that's really what I get enjoyment for. Like, I can't wait until you feel, forget the crossbow at night. Like, that's cool, but when you feel, that PSE bow behind you, when you were at full draw and you're coming down on an animal, man, I'm telling you, there is not a feeling in the world like it. I mean, that is like, you want to talk about the moment of truth. and the world standing still for that moment. I mean, it's, there is just nothing like it, man. That's the addiction. That's the moment. That's the moment you chase, is that moment of full draw. It's unreal. There's nothing like it.
Is it gonna be as epic as the day my son was born?
That's apples to oranges, man. I don't know about that.
Imagine, this is the best day of my life.
Did you remember that? Yeah. Right. Oh man.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll get out there again soon. And I had a lot of fun chatting with you today, Jeff. And
absolutely, wise man.
Hopefully this is to more memories out in the woods and seeing. Again, I'm excited. I'm pumped because it's like when you practice towards something and you're just working on that, and then seeing the fruit of your labor finally come to that, like you said, that moment. It's like what was that one saying? That's what determines the boys from the men.
Oh yeah, separates the men from the boys. Yeah.
It's like I'm waiting, man. I'm patiently waiting, and it's like you said, you have to get in. You have to go into it with a certain kind of mindset. You can't rush the process. You can't. You got to, like what I was telling you when I was getting my bow tune. I'm like, I don't want to tune it with the broadheads on it yet because I don't feel I'm ready. Because when I go out there, I don't want that animal to suffer. Even if it is invasive, even if it's not a whatever, I still don't want it to suffer. Because I mean, essentially, you're still putting, a lot of people are like, oh, that animal didn't even know what it hit it. Bro, if you took a fucking arrow through your chest, through your lungs, I'm pretty sure you're going to feel that. I mean, you make the best of it, so it's more swift, but it's going to be the swiftest death that animal could have in the wild.
It really
because
is, man. Absolutely.
You could get attacked by a gator, get its arm ripped off, and just chomped on for hours and drowned when you shoot
absolutely
hard
man,
into the lungs,
I totally agree with that. That's something that gets brought up a lot. It's like Ted Nugent always says, is like, tooth, fang, and claw. I mean, that's the worst way to go.
Yeah.
Something starts eating you before you're even dead. And that's why I resent when people look down at hunters. It's like, no, this is the most merciful thing that you can do. It sounds like sounds so ass backwards, but it's the truth. It's like, man,
it's like Joe Rogan talks about like getting attacked by a grizzly bear and getting ate from the dick up. Can you imagine that, bro? Just starting at your dick and just chomping its way up.
There's nothing you can do. Dude, all you can do is just scream, man. There's no one there to help you. It's like,
it just tears you to shreds. Like I told you, I watched Revenant before going out there with you, dude.
Yeah,
that movie, man. Oh my God, what a great movie.
It's so real,
You told me it was based on a true story. I didn't even know that.
Yep. Based on a true story about the trappers and all that. Yeah, most of that movie, of course, it's I'm sure they modify stuff to make it more interesting or whatever, make a movie out of it. But no, but like that bear attack, that's real. That is really happened.
Yeah, no.
I mean, how do you live through that, dude? Like, how do you just you're gonna fight for your life? And look at you, or look at a human being. Like, what do we have? We have shit.
We have thumbs. We have thumbs. That's about it, dude.
And you can't do shit. You're just kind of like, okay, I guess this is it. And you just clawing and screaming and
oh man. Well, again, spoiler alert for that documentary. It turns out that at the end of that, he does get attacked by obviously a grizzly bear, and he records it. He got it on recording. Him and his girlfriend got it on recording, bro.
No shit. Did the girlfriend? I don't want you to reveal too much or have to, but I don't know. Did she get it too?
Yeah. She got it. Both of them got it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's what I got.
Dude, watch the documentary. Watch it. It's called Grizzly Man.
I've seen it like 1,000 times, like on there. I don't know why the hell I never watched. You know what it is? It's probably like, okay, yeah, the dude gets eaten. It's like watching the Titanic.
It goes, yeah. It goes deeper than that, dude. It's a great documentary. Yeah. But again, dude, I had a lot of fun today, man. This is your first podcast. We got it down in the books. hopefully when I get my first hog, we'll do another one of how that was, and we'll have a
Absolutely,
story to
man.
tell.
Yeah. I can't
And
wait. I got a couple spots that I got lined up that, you know, maybe we could do something at. I don't know when you'll be ready with your compound, but you know, you tell me when, and we're just gonna make it happen.
yeah,
So,
dude, for sure. I had a lot of fun
absolutely.
today, Jeff.
Likewise. Thanks a lot, man.